Okay, critical thinking mode. Achiko can hold him off, at least for a little while, but keeping that thing around all these injured combatants is a risk not worth taking. Izuku thought, gonna need to move that fight elsewhere. Open a portal from my location to emergency location B45, Izuku ordered. And open a portal from the Gamma's location to emergency location C22. Emergency locations. Designated spots that were abandoned, unpopulated, and generally difficult for the public to get to. These locations had been acquired by the Midoriya Foundation and were places that the Midoriya Foundation or the government could take fights to when they got too destructive. Location B45 was a small, abandoned island, and C22 was an abandoned town, and get scouting out and analyzing them. Izuku added. A portal opened up nearby a few moments later. Achiko, send him through there. Izuku shouted out to her. Got it, Achiko shouted as she jumped back, avoiding a swipe of Shredder's blades. She shot out black whips that wrapped around Shredder's neck. Then Achiko swung herself around, taking Shredder with her, before throwing him into the portal. Quickly Achiko jumped through the portal herself. All right, close the portal, Izuku ordered, and then suddenly, Giza rushed past him. What? As the portal was closing, Giza jumped through it. Ack! Damn it! Izuku growled, before talking to his communicator. Giza, what are you doing? My apologies, sir, but I need to see this to the end, Giza said. Otherwise, I would not be able to forgive myself for dragging you into this. Izuku was about to point out how outmatched he was when Nizu spoke up over the comms. I wouldn't bother trying to stop him Midoriya. He's quite stubborn, Nizu said. Regardless, we're beginning to wrap up the foot-capturing operation in some places. As such, various pro-heroes are now available to you. Good. Achiko's probably gonna need backup. Izuku said. Sir, we're having problems. Gamma 2 reported. Gamma 1 charged full force into All for One and tackled him, trying to force him into the portal. But as they approached the portal, suddenly All for One's body faded a bit, and Gamma 1 went right through it, before All for One returned to normal. We can't get him into the portal, Gamma 2 said as he shot down at All for One, hot shots destroying chunks from his body, but they just regenerated immediately. And we can't seem to do anything harm to him either. It's like he doesn't have a body anymore. All for One looked up at Gamma 2, raised his hand, and shot black and red tendrils from his fingers. Gamma 2 dodged most of them, but one managed to wrap around his foot. Before All for One could do anything with that, Gamma 1 blasted that tendril, destroying it. GRRRR. Kill. All. Villains. All for One shouted. It was at this point the two took notice that All for One's voice was very different. Like an army of voices speaking at once. Strangely enough, All for One's original voice was not among them. All for One is acting odd. It's almost like whatever this is, isn't All for One at all. Gamma 1 responded. Damn it. How did this all go to hell so fast? Izuku sighed. Start getting medical assistance over here. Get me back to base, and get Achiko some help. Specifically, I want Dash. Shredder and Achiko rushed through the small abandoned beach island, leaving destruction in their wake. Achiko jumped over one of Shredder's swipes and kicked him in the face, sending him flying once again. Ugh. Achiko groaned as she took a second to catch her breath. She was so tired, and probably a little dehydrated. Fighting an army of demons in an underground dimension filled with lava and fire had really drained her, and fighting Shredder was only making matters worse. Oh, and the stab wound in her chest was not helping either. Rah! Shredder roared as he charged back at her, not giving her any time to breathe. Ochako got ready to fight once again, and then a portal opened behind her. "Move aside, please." Ochako recognized the voice and immediately jumped to the side, out of the way of Shredder's charge. Wheem! A beam of light shot out of the portal and slammed into Shredder's face, causing him to fly back onto his back, his face burnt. Aoyama jumped out of the portal and stood next to Ochako. The cavalry has arrived. Shredder quickly regenerated the damage done to his face and got back up, but as he was doing so, suddenly Elmillion rose through the ground and uppercut him into the air. "Power!" Mirio shouted as he popped up. Then, Mariko jumped in and kicked the mid-air Shredder, knocking him away deeper into the forest on the island. Phew! Ochako breathed a sigh of relief as everyone grouped up. "Don't relax yet, kid. Bastard's not dead, so our job's not done," Mariko told her. "She is right," Giza said, appearing behind them. "However, now we have a plan. While you were all being sent here via the portals, Mr. Midoriya sent something else. He then pulled out the Dagger of Destiny. This will allow us to bypass that regeneration of his and finally put an end to this," Giza said. "I simply need you all to create an opening for me." "Rah-hai!" Shredder roared as he slammed down in front of them, now looking even larger than before. "I doubt it will be simple." Aoyama sighed. "All right, let's stun him a bit." Uraraka ties him up and the rat guy goes for the kill, Mirio said, before vanishing into the ground. Shredder launched more blades at them, but Giza rushed forward and used the dagger to deflect the blades. Mirio popped up behind Shredder and kicked him on the top of the head. Then, without missing a beat, Mariko rushed in and kicked him in the side of the head. Aoyama then shot him in the face, causing him to stumble back, completely overwhelmed for a moment. The onslaught continued, with Mirio and Mariko rushing around Shredder, delivering swift but powerful blows to the head, and Aoyama shooting lasers at his face whenever he got the chance. Ochako rushed in and shot out her black whip, tying up Shredder. Shredder shot more blades out of his body, moving around to try and break out of her hold, but Ochako just shot out more black whips to replace the ones that Shredder cut through, all the while Mirio and Mariko still did their hit and run on his head. "I can't hold him for long." Giza rushed forward and leapt at Shredder, dagger ready to end this once and for all. But as Giza approached, Shredder began to glow. Ochako's danger sense went off. "Everyone watch out, he's dash." And then lightning bursts off his body. "Ag!" Mariko and Ochako were shocked. Mirio reacted just in time, phasing right through the stray bolt of lightning. A lightning bolt headed towards Giza, but the rat ninja pulled out one of Shredder's blades that he'd picked up before and placed it in front of him, causing the lightning to split apart like a log against a saw. Giza continued forward, pushing his dagger forward and cutting off Shredder's head. The lightning stopped and Shredder ceased moving. Ugh, hi! Ochako fell to the ground face first and passed out promptly. Mirio quickly rushed in to check on her. "This is Elmillion. Uravity needs urgent care." "Understood. Thank you, Elmillion," Izuku said over comms. Meanwhile, Giza himself was struggling to stay standing. While he had cut the lightning bolt that had been sent towards him, he still got zapped pretty bad when he cut through his head. But he still had things to do. He had to keep going. Giza went over to Shredder's detached head and picked it up. And so it finally ends. A second later, Shredder's body started to bloat. Rapidly, it began to expand and deform, until it was just an increasingly large mass of flesh. "Everyone, you have to get out of here." They looked up to see a drone that had been watching the fight, and mice spoke through its speakers. The mutagen that Shredder took was rapidly filling his body with energy. His brain was forcibly turning that energy into mutations, but without that, the energy was just filling up in his body. He's going to explode. You gotta be fucking kidding me, Mariko growled. A portal opened up by Aoyama. Well, time to skittle. Mariko catch, Mirio said as he threw Ochako at her. Mariko caught her in one arm and grabbed Giza with the other, before jumping through the portal in one go. Aoyama and Mirio went next, and then the portal closed behind them. Kaboom! With that, Shredder's body exploded, and the entire island was caught in the blast. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief as he saw everyone get away just in time before the island exploded. Using the portals, he'd made it back to his office, which was now in what he liked to call overseer mode. With multiple screens coming down from the ceiling and up from the floor, showing him every possible part of the battle. With Shredder down, now he could turn all his attention to All for One. Izuku stared at the villain fighting the Gammas, neither of them seemingly able to do anything to him. How did you do this? I believe I can explain, sir, Mai said through his communicator. The drones have completed their field analysis. I can confirm that this thing is not quite All for One. The screen in front of Izuku showed the data they'd collected on this fake All for One. This being is a result of all the negative chaos energy All for One had when he was transformed by Sin. When All for One's body was destroyed, all that was left was a mass of negative energy and quirk factors. Normally, without a physical form to attach to, it would just dissipate. But perhaps because the energy was too dense, or maybe due to certain quirk factors allowing it to manifest physically, it remained. But All for One lost control, either because his own quirk factor was weakened by the loss of his body, because the negativity was too much for him to control, or both. Either way, what's now in control seems to be a collective consciousness of vestiges taken by All for One. Currently, we are calling this being Energy Revenant made of Angry Chaos, or Ermac for short. I see. So I'm guessing the reason they keep screaming about how villains must die must have to do with their hatred of All for One, Izuku asked. Most likely. The vast majority of the vestiges likely despise All for One and anyone like him. As such, they're currently going on a mindless rampage to kill anything they perceive to be enough like All for One, namely villains.
Mais explained.
Ermac's body is pretty much entirely composed of solidified energy, making him pretty much impossible to harm by conventional means. What about Eraserhead? Izuku asked. While Eraserhead could likely prevent the being from forming or causing any damage, his quirk would be unable to do any actual harm to Ermac. We would be just as unable to harm him as it would be able to harm us. And once Eraserhead is unable to continue using his quirk, we would be right back to where we started. So what do we do? Izuku asked. Well, Ermac is made up of negative chaos energy, giving him pretty much the same biology and weakness as Yami's Grim or the Shadow Dragons, Mai said. And thankfully, SHE is still in the country. Gamma 2 cried as he was promptly punched through several buildings by Ermac. Gamma 1 fired down at Ermac, but the collection of souls looked up and shot lasers out of his eyes, aimed at the android's head. Gamma 1 barely managed to dodge by tilting his head, the lasers scraping by the side of its head leaving burn lines. Ermac aimed its arm up. Wind and lightning started to gather around its arm as it prepared for a stronger attack. Pretty cannon. And then suddenly a heart slammed into them from the side, sending them flying through a couple buildings. Gamma 1 looked to see Ribrian standing to the side. The love warrior of France has arrived. Ribrian shouted. Thanks for the assistance, Gamma 1 said, before turning his head to look at Ermac, who was rising out of the rubble.
Ah?
Ermac grunted, seemingly in pain, the arm that got hit by Ribrian's attack fully gone. However, noticing this, Ermac quickly reformed it. His energy readings are going down. Gamma 1 shouted as he scanned Ermac. Your attacks are working. Keep on the pressure. Lovely. Machine gun. Ribrian fired hearts rapidly from her hands, right at Ermac. In response, Ermac put up a force field, blocking the hearts from hitting them. Then Ermac charged at Ribrian with an incredible burst of speed, force field still up around them ready to crash into Ribrian, only for Gamma 2 to kick the side of their shield at full force, cracking it and sending them flying once again, crashing into the side of a skyscraper. Then, the Gammas and Ribrian started blasting Ermac, causing its shield to crack more and more. But just before the shield cracked, energy started to swirl around all for one. Uh-oh, brace for impact. Gamma 2 shouted. Kaboom! A giant burst of energy exploded from Ermac, and the explosion quickly engulfed the 3 fighters, as well as a quarter of the city. The light from the explosion died down after a few seconds, leaving nothing but smoke and a massive crater. In that crater lay the 2 Gammas along with Ribrian. Ugh, hi! Ribrian groaned as she lay in the crater, the world spinning from the impact of the explosion. Reboot sequence complete. Gamma 1's eyes opened. The impact temporarily knocked out his systems. Crap. 2. Are you okay? Yeah, just finished rebooting. Gamma 2 said, walking out from the smoke, limping towards his brother. My flight systems are down, so's my left leg though. Other than that, my fractal's all good, so I'll live. You. Gamma 1 got up and looked at his damaged diagnostic. Flight systems are no-go for me either, but everything else is good. Well, good enough. The 2 looked around, scanning the area. Did we win? Ribrian asked, still trying not to throw up. His energy signature is gone for the most part. Gamma 1 explained. There's a trail of leaking energy heading off, but it stops after a few miles out. It's likely that the explosion was just a diversion, so it could escape. It was probably afraid of your power. As it should be. Ribrian groaned. But does that mean all this was for nothing? No, you definitely weakened it. Looks like negativity chaos energy doesn't do too well against the literal power of love, huh? Figures. Gamma 2 sighed. Well, at least this battle is over. But it feels like the war never ends. Gamma 1 said.